Hey, Rick, you know what's awesome?
What's that, Billy?
Oh, wait. Opposite day. Nothing's awesome. Everything sucks.
Nothing's really awesome.
Ugh. All right, to start the show, the whole idea behind the show, I realized that by the time this show airs, we might have a new president or we might have an old president, but this whole last week has been crappy. And so we decided long before the whole president thing that we were going to have an opposite day episode. Because remember, in school, we talk about opposite day. It's opposite day.
Yeah.
Like, I like it when you kick me in the head, you know? Like, it's opposite day. Stop doing that. But the show was inspired by me walking around thinking of themes for the show, things we could talk about. You know, it's like the dog or the weather or something. And I literally went and unloaded the dishwasher. I opened the dishwasher and I unloaded it. I stacked all the dishes into where they go. And it wasn't until I was completely done, like 98% done, I noticed that the soap thing was closed. And that the dishes hadn't been washed.
Yeah.
And so not only did the dishes not get washed, but I had to go guess. Like, I had to, look and compare the clean dishes to the dirty dishes and reload the dishwasher and start it up again. I was like, that is not awesome. That is the very definition of not awesome. So then I was like, hey, man, what do you think is not awesome? Like, what's something that's not awesome?
Yeah.
And we're like, I got a big-ass list. So it's opposite day here on You Know What's Awesome podcast. So this is a very special episode. Cue the sad piano music. What's not awesome?
Well, to kind of get things going, because you kind of gave a little story of what happened to you, I'm going to tell you about my Monday. Tuesday. Sorry, Tuesday. You know I've got a lot of animals, right? For you guys that don't know, that's listening to the show, I married a female Grizzly Adams. We basically live on a farm. We've got 9 donkeys, 2 dogs to 5 dogs, based on what day it is and when the neighbor's dogs come over, which never go home. There's a plethora of skunks that hang around who end up getting under the house, which is not a good experience. And then we've got about 50 cats. And my wife has a heart as big as the state that Billy lives in. And I go into work. It's Tuesday morning. I'm already trying to configure, okay, how do I ask my boss, hey, what time can I cut out of here and go do my voting and stuff, being I live an hour away from work. I stopped and got me a chicken biscuit to take into work, and walking through the parking lot, which is a huge parking lot. I mean, the place I work is a very good-sized factory. There's, 1,200 people working there. And I hear a noise, and I can tell it's a sound of distress. And it's a kitten.
Oh, no.
So apparently a small kitten had gotten in somebody's car up in the motor to get warm, I'm sure, because it was kind of cold that morning, and hitchhike a ride all the way to work. And I called to it. It came out, little bitty thing, man. I mean, maybe 2 months old. It's really small. And I thought, there's no way this thing will even make it out here by itself. It'll get up in another car, get hurt, get lost, all those things, right? So you do what you're supposed to do, right? You call your wife and go, okay, here's what I found, what I do. And she's like, well, you got to bring it home. So I ended up taking a whole day vacation because I found a kitten to bring the kitten home.
Oh, man. And just to feed it to the rest of your 50 cats.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Hey, here's a new buddy. He's like, oh, man, I thought it was going to get TLC. I was going to lay by the fireplace.
Right. No, what they got is a little terror that runs around and chases all of them now. So, yeah, that's my awesomeness right there. Of course, my wife is happy, and she says, we didn't need another cat, but there you go. It's the right thing to do. And she's got a bigger heart than I do, but I can't let animals, be out in the
Of
cold and
course,
suffer
you're
and all
not.
that stuff. So
Well, I've got this problem because right at the beginning of quarantine, um, I'm and anybody can listen. They're like, oh, you can hate me all you want. I'm not a big dog person. I'm a
yeah,
much bigger like I'm a travel person, so I like to go places and
yeah,
not have to worry about who's going to watch the dog.
sure,
And so like that just we've always had dogs, but I'm not like the 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 plight of the dog is not the first thing that comes to mind when you're like, oh, hey, we can spend 10 days in Hawaii. I'm like, cool, that sounds great. And it's like, well, what are we going to do with the dog? I'm like, damn it. Right. ah, well, anyway, right at the beginning of quarantine, when the whole world was coming to an end, right before the whole world came to an end, my wife got, and she's like, oh, we found us this new puppy. So I get this puppy, and it's a black lab beagle mix, which, if you're familiar with either of those
mm.
breeds, they're high energy and stubborn.
Oh yeah,
Like that's the trait. Like if you take them completely separated and be like, okay, this one's high energy, this one's stubborn. But also, it's just like kind of long bellied black lab looking beagle, which is just absolutely cute as hell. Like you can't be mad at it for all the crap that it does.
right,
But it's just like it rips up the yard, and she's just so sweet. Come over and lick your feet, and you're
right.
like, why does that feel gritty? And you look out in the yard, you're like, oh, big old hole in the yard. That's so like I always have these very big bravo angry, like I'm gonna whoop this dog's ass is what's about to happen. This dog has earned a whooping. So yesterday she digs this big ass hole in the yard. I come home and there's a big hole in the yard. And I know, dude, my wife would bury this dog by the face for the hole that was dug. She'd not be happy about this. But I was like, see this hole? I'm like, you know what? Last straw. I go in there and grab the pepper and I pour it on the hole. I'm like, when she comes back out here, she's gonna
Right.
learn. And then my dumbass, I won't let her out because I know the pepper's in the hole,
Uh,
and she's gonna go like burn herself up. So I'm like, kids, don't let the dog out. Don't let the dog out. I gotta go out there and like turn the. So at least I finally went out and got the shovel and I turned the dirt into the hole and I
yeah,
packed it. So at least she has to dig it back up, and then she'll get a dose of. But man,
yeah,
dogs. You love them,
yeah,
you hate them, and then you want to punish them, and then you're like, you know what? You're too cute. I don't want.
yeah.
I'm not gonna
Well,
hurt you.
and they kind of end up being your kids before it's over with too. I mean, because you
Of
have them so
course.
much and they're around, and I don't know. We got one. We got a little dog named Pondo Sinatra, and it's the same deal, man. He gets on your nerves. He jumps up on you every time you walk past him. And he's a little blue heeler and some kind of miniature pincher or something. And he's just cute as a dickens, but he drives you insane. And he just, it's that thing where you want to smack him, but you'll hurt his feelings if you do. All
Exactly.
right,
Oh
that's enough
man.
pet talk.
No, no, it's good. All right. So unloading the dishwasher, hitting your toe when you get up in the middle
Oh,
of the night. You're like, I was sleeping peacefully, and that little call it your conscience, your Jiminy Cricket's like,
oh.
hey, if you don't open your eyes too wide, you can make it there and back and be asleep without waking yourself up. And then you just bark yourself and you end up screaming and waking everybody up because your toes have broke and you're just mad. Ah, no good.
On my end of that is the middle of the night when you're asleep, leg cramp, like in
Mm.
your calf or whatever, and you do the Indian dance. You jump out of the bed and you're jumping around going, oh, oh. Then you're trying to get it to go back, but the problem is you lay there so long asleep, and you feel it just slowly start creeping up on you, and you don't do anything about it. And by the time you react, it's full-fledged pain.
It, it was on my list, and we don't talk about these sorts of things on this show, but like when you're trying to get it on in the morning because it's a quiet time, doors locked, the kids are asleep, it's way too early for anybody to be moving around and whatever, and you're right in the middle of stuff, and then you hear like, "Mama," and then you have to fake an injury. It's like, what was that noise? You're like, well, I had a cramp in my leg. So
Oh.
basically, if it's dark outside, it's unacceptable. Like, don't do that. If it's light outside, if the door's closed, just don't. But we got we got two of them, and they ask questions and they say things, and it's like earlier tonight, like cooking dinner. My wife walks up and she like gives me a little peck on the cheek, and I kind of grab her and like give her a hug and smooch. And then I have two kids over in the corner, like,
Ooh,
ew,
yeah.
ew. Like, this is not awesome.
I rem-
Like remember whenever we didn't have kids and we'd sit there and like cook dinner and it would be a romantic evening.
yeah.
Now you get your romantic evening completely piled into the ground, and then you actually serve the food and sit down, and they're both like, "I don't like it."
Right. Yeah. I'm afraid I was that kid.
See,
Oh.
I was not that kid. I mean, there were certain foods that I didn't like, and like everybody doesn't like something, and that's fine. I always found it funny that like things that my parents both liked, they said I had to eat. But like my dad didn't like squash, so if my mom cooked
Mm.
squash, he'd be like, "Yeah, you don't have to eat that." My mom would get so pissed.
Uh, I
But
was just George Carlin did a skit about this, and it's dead up the way I was because I'd be like, I don't like that. They'd be like, well, how do you know? Well, I can look at it, and it don't look right, so I know I don't like it. Is there a
yep,
picture of it in the cookbook? I bet it don't look like that.
dude, I know. So what, we haven't talked about it on this show, I don't think, but we talked about it on some other show. I know we talked about it on Scary Dad, but you know the movie Piranha.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so that movie was filmed in a place called Aquarena
yeah.
Springs, and it's out in San Marcos. It's like west of Austin, and Aquarena Springs used to be a theme park.
Hmm.
And so what it was you have these natural springs that just bubble up out of the ground, and they feed the river. And so they dammed it up so it turned into a lake. But the lake is clear to the bottom. So
Yeah.
like 30, 40 feet deep, you can see straight through. So they had these glass bottom boats. And so my grandparents and my family and I, we used to go to San Marcos from our house is about 2.5, 3 hours away. So for the weekend, we'd go to Austin, we'd go to San Marcos, and we'd go to Aquarena Springs because it was an awesome
Yeah.
place. They had a pig that would jump off the diving board. They had mermaids, and it was the coolest thing, dude. Like, if you've never seen one of these water shows, they had this giant clam at the bottom of the lake, and so like you you have this viewing port, kind of like at an aquarium,
Yeah.
and it's however deep it is, but the clamshell had the little air jets where the people could breathe.
Yeah.
And you had these women in mermaid costumes swimming around doing acrobatics like 25, 30 feet in the water. And then they'd swim over and take a breath and then like continue about, and then they drop the, dude, when you were a kid, it was the coolest thing
Yeah.
that you'll ever see. Aquarena Springs was probably better than Astroworld. It was
Wow.
amazing. Well, anyway, they filmed Piranha at Aquarena Springs. And the reason is because however they got in there, they had these perch that swam in the lake,
Yeah.
and they would cluster like piranha do.
Mm.
So from the surface, if you stuck a camera in the water, they looked like
Yeah.
a school of piranha. I used to be scared of those glass bottom boats
Sure.
because I could just look down and see like be in a glass bottom plane and be scared of heights.
Heck yeah.
Like I'm scared of sharks and I'm scared of fish that bite. I've seen The Toy. I know what they did to Richard Pryor. I've seen Piranha. I've seen Jaws. I know like there's there is some bad stuff that happens when you're that deep in the water. And these. Okay, so the reason I'm telling this story is my parents took us like before we went to Aquarina Springs. We went and ate food somewhere, and my dad told me we weren't gonna go until I finished my hamburger. So I was full or I didn't like it or something. So I stuck it up in the side of my mouth like a like a ball of chew. I just walked around with this damn ball of ground meat in my mouth for hours, just hours. Like we were going around and like I couldn't spit it out because I'd get in trouble, and I couldn't swallow it because I'd puke. Because I was after a while, it was the nastiest thing in the world.
Wow.
And finally, we're on this glass bottom boat and we're listening to the tour guide talk. And at some point, my mom was like, "What is in your mouth? Like, what are you chewing on?" And I wouldn't say. Like, I got up on the side of the boat. And honestly, I remember this to this day. I was ready to jump in and swim to the side. And I didn't know how to swim. Like, I was just ready to call it a life. I'm out. And finally, she got it out of me that I had this ball of hamburger in my mouth from like hours ago. And she made me spit it over the side. And this piranha perch came up and got it. So, like, whenever I'm like coming down on my kid, being like, "You need to eat the food," I'm like, "But she's got no big lake to spit it." Yeah. So, yeah. Carrying around a hamburger half the day inside of your mouth like a hamster, not awesome.
Oh man. Oh. So, as far as
you're like, I can't follow that one.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to go to something else because I don't have anything to go up against that. I've never walked around with a hamburger stuck in my jaw for an hour. It's never happened. Obviously, it's how I got this body because it all went internal, right? I don't know how to go through my list and not sound like an old crotchety old fart. Because some of these things look like, you know what pisses me off? You whippersnappers.
I'm all over it, dude. I'm like, dude, at this point, your music sucks.
Yeah.
It's not awesome.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Like, and I don't think we've talked about it on the show because we haven't recorded in a
hot minute.
When Eddie Van Halen died.
Yeah.
Like Van Halen songs from like the early 80s swung up the charts real fast because people were buying individual tracks, and we're about to like turn the Billboard charts in favor of rock and roll, which hasn't happened since Nirvana,
right?
In the early 90s, which is freaking 30 years ago,
right?
Which is just like it'll turn your hair gray, won't it?
Yeah.
But
it's amazing too because you've got the whole reaction video thing that's on YouTube, and you're seeing a ton of them now for Live Without a Net, when he does the guitar solo on that, which is Eruption and Cathedral and all that stuff mixed together. It's one of the greatest live recorded guitar solos ever, and people are doing these reactions to it and they act like, I mean, they really have no idea who this guy is. There he goes with that tapping thing again. It's like, yeah, he freaking invented it. I mean, he was the guy. I mean, so it's funny to see these people being blown away by a genre of music that they just don't listen to because it's not radio friendly anymore. And you're like, yeah, this is what you're missing when you're listening to your drum machines and people just going, I mean,
yeah,
And
Well,
again, this
dude, even
sounds like a crotchety old dude, but it's true.
well, crotchety old dude, because I mean, I came up in the '80s, so like Van Halen,
Yeah,
all of that stuff was current to me, and we even said in our top five guitarists,
yeah,
and I'm not going to go back and be like, oh well, now
yeah,
all of a sudden,
yeah.
I've always been hot and cold on Van Halen.
Sure.
When they're great, they're great. When
Hmm.
they're not. You know, um, and that didn't change.
Right.
But there's absolutely no way that I'm ever going to be like, oh well, Van Halen sucks because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's that's impossible.
Right.
You can be like, well, they wrote songs I didn't want to hear, or they had an off day,
Yeah.
like, but whenever you get to their classics, and especially Eddie Van Halen just tearing into guitars and
Yeah,
being
man.
like,
Yeah.
well, this is how guitars are made and this is how they're supposed to sound, but this is what you can do with them by a, a little bit of solder and a little bit of electrical tape,
Yeah.
and then we've got this Frankenstrat
Yeah.
that just innovates the entire industry of guitars. Like,
Yep. The
I just need it to sound the way I need it to sound,
yeah. I mean
and
the
turns
way
an
yeah
entire industry on its ear.
the way he used
That
the tremolo bar, the whammy bar, and the decision of liking the Strat body, but he liked the dual humbuckers. I mean, even these scenarios were things that weren't popular at the time, and yeah, he just did it himself, and I think that's the thing that we're getting back to is it's such an originality. He's taking
hmm
an age old instrument and he did exactly with it what Hendrix did with it in the 60s. He was our Hendrix. He just took it
hmm
to a whole different level. And then, you know, everybody that followed that, which we may enjoy even more because it's more of what we were listening to, were all influenced by Eddie Van Halen.
yeah,
So, but it just goes back to, like you're saying with the music, it's you're seeing more and more producers involved with one song. I saw a thing a while back where it was a Beyonce song and it had like 18 songwriters and 15 producers to make one song, and then it showed Bohemian Rhapsody, one writer, one
yeah.
producer, and how can you
One
even,
writer, one producer, and like five musicians
yeah,
because they are just playing their instruments.
right,
And that's to me, that's what's not awesome. Like I feel bad. Like I don't feel bad because generations and stuff. Because like when I was a kid, because my dad was a music guy, big time.
yeah,
He like I've got stories we'll tell on the show, but like my dad was friends with guys. He was a radio DJ, so he emceed. He hung out with rock stars and
yeah,
like he was of that ilk.
yeah,
But he was also very much in that like when like I'm coming up in the '80s and listening to bands like Def Leppard and Whitesnake, and
sure,
it's like and he turned his nose up at it. He
yeah,
kind of looked down at it. It's like,
sure,
oh, it's like and I always so as the little punk rocker, the little metalhead in me always kind of turned a little bit of a. I'm like, okay, well, no, because you're the Beatles, you're Stones,
yeah,
your Buddy Hollies.
yeah,
These guys were subversive and they were new, and the prior generation was looking down on them
hated
just
them,
because you happened to like
yeah,
run in that circle.
sure,
So then, like for me, because when I was a kid, I was listening to '80s, and then whenever I was a teenager, I was listening to '90s. So I was full on to the grunge.
sure,
Alice in Chains is probably one of my favorite bands
yeah,
ever, and then Soundgarden and Nirvana.
yeah,
And it's not one of those things where I'll circle back because I was never the hugest Soundgarden fan.
hmm,
I loved Alice in Chains though,
yeah,
because people talk about the '80s like we've talked about. It's like, oh, you see, it's like, oh, we're dressed in parachute pants all the time, or we're dressed in weird stuff. Like, no, you had the bands that you liked, you had the artists that you liked, the shows that you liked, whatever,
right,
and then the stuff that you were maybe lukewarm on and hit or missed or whatever. I loved Alice in Chains. I could have taken or left Soundgarden. They had a few wonderful songs that I loved,
yeah,
but in general, not as much. I really like them now,
sure,
and not because of Chris Cornell, but just
yeah.
because
Well, you
time and
hindsight, and you go back and you see, oh, I kind of get it
yeah,
now.
exactly.
Yeah, and I was the same
Um,
way. Of course, I really liked Audio Slave, but I knew early on. First time I heard Chris Cornell sing, I thought, man, this guy, he's the best singer in that genre. But I don't necessarily
Hmm.
like a lot of the Soundgarden songs. So it's kind of that same thing, right?
You know what's not awesome?
What's that?
We had tickets to see Soundgarden on Thursday night,
Ah,
and he died on Tuesday.
man. Yeah,
It was the it was the hardest thing ever. Like, oh
man.
my God, what? Wait, what?
Holy crap,
Holy, yeah, it was not good.
man.
And you know it's also not awesome? This is a little funnier because Soundgarden is the worst thing ever. But so Nirvana, never got to see Nirvana, but Nirvana, despite all the okay, so we'll get off music in a second, but just one of those things like so Kurt Cobain was a jerk. He was a public jerk.
Yeah,
He liked to be a jerk. He liked to be known as a jerk. If you ever tried to show him in a non-jerk light, he would pull down his pants or throw paint at you. Like he was a freaking monkey in a zoo. He
right.
just
Throw his crap
he
at you.
was he was a jerk, and that was his persona.
Yeah,
After he died, they got all these pictures of him looking very pensive with his hair clean
hmm
and his, Martin guitar and like this
yeah,
whatever Courtney Love said, or maybe it was Billy Corgan. It's like the little Pisces Jesus man. But when he was alive, he
yeah.
was an ass.
Sure.
I liked Nirvana, but Kurt Cobain was a jerk.
Yeah.
Well, Nirvana was on tour with the Breeders. You remember that band?
Sure do.
Which the Breeders was Kim or Kelly Deal, Kim Deal
Yep.
from the Pixies, right?
Yep.
So, like all these dots connect. But Nirvana was on tour, and they were coming through Houston with the Breeders. And my buddy and I were supposed to go to that show. But Nirvana was also headlining Lollapalooza,
Mm.
like 3 or 4 months later. And we had tickets to the Nirvana show, which they played,
Yeah.
but we couldn't go. We ended up having to offload our tickets because Jason had to work. And his exact words when he's like, dude, I can't make it. We're going to have to offload our tickets. I was like, dude, get your night off. Quit. Do something. We got to go see the show. He's like, he's going to be around in like 3 months. What he's going to fucking do? Die? Quote, unquote, yes.
Man.
Yep.
Man. That's
And
crazy.
that is not awesome.
Yeah. Well, my story on that is, a huge Queen fan, a huge Kiss fan. And I may have talked about this before, I don't know, but the world was so wrapped up with Freddie Mercury dying that while they were showing a bunch of Freddie Mercury stuff on MTV, a news flash came up and it said that Eric Carr, the drummer of Kiss, had died. They both died the same day. Two of my biggest heroes in one day. And I still haven't gotten over it. I mean,
Eric Carr didn't die on the same day as Freddie Mercury, though. He died later. He didn't die on the same. Like, did they die at the same time?
same day.
Oh.
Yeah, same
Oh
day.
wow!
Yeah.
I thought it was like same day, but like a year or
No,
a year different.
same day.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And I mean, I fell apart, man, because Eric Carr was my drummer. I mean, he was just it, And of course, Freddie. I mean, what can you say?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my take on that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's not very awesome.
No.
So
You
you're
ever
talking
stepped?
you're talking about early '90s music. Here's something that's not awesome. Early '90s CGI.
Pretty much, if it's not in Terminator 2, it's not good.
Man, I mean, there's so many movies that would probably be great if they would just go back and fix a lot of that now. But man, it just even then, movies come to mind like American Werewolf in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know that even changing the effects in that would probably save that movie, but anyways, just those graphics, man.
Well, like I saw American Werewolf in Paris, and I've never really been a huge fan of the cure at the end
Yeah.
of a monster movie,
Yeah.
like we talk about in Near Dark, like even
Yeah.
though if that transfusion works, she's still been straight up killing people every night for like the last 20, 30
Exactly.
years.
Yeah.
She's not going to be a good girlfriend.
Right.
So like, like she's got some definite ghosts following her around. So like I don't really like that as a fallback. Like, oh, there's a cure,
Right.
unless it's the like, oh, like Lost Boys, like kill the head vampire. Like if you kill the head vampire, then you haven't actually killed anybody. You're just infected. So if we
Right.
can get this guy, then
You're
the
cutting
curse
the
goes
head.
away.
Cut the head off the Hydra. Yeah.
But American Werewolf in Paris was the story wasn't horrible except for that part to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
especially following up American Werewolf in London.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like you remember the slaughtered lamb. They have an upside down pentagram on the wall. Like
Right.
they're probably church going folk. And that's one of those things especially about old school Europe, like the Wicker Man.
Right.
Like I got into a discussion about the Wicker Man where it's like, what is scary about the Wicker Man? It's like, oh, it's the establishment in church. I was like, no.
No. Yeah.
The thing about the Wicker Man is how normal all these people are.
Right.
They're so normal.
Yeah.
They're just going about their everyday lives. They're just normal folks. They're smoking in the bar. They're listening to music. They're taking their kids to school. Like everything is normal.
Yeah.
Except for we're going to put you in the pyre.
Yeah.
Because
that's how we get to sit here and drink in the bar and hang out at night, and I mean that's it. It's keeping them the normal life, right?
So it's not like Halloween where you're like, okay, what's the problem here? The problem here is there's no problem here. They're just committed to what they're doing, and they're very nonchalant.
It's a necessary evil, right? It's just like you want to eat chicken tonight. Well, somebody has to cut the head off the chicken, right?
Exactly.
I mean, and that's as far as they look at it, because they're looking at the outcome versus the way we would go, I'm not cutting the head off the chicken,
Yeah, I'm not going to kill that guy.
Right. So a guy that I work with just had to have that discussion with his kids because they were talking about, people killing animals. He's like, well, if you said, do you like pork chops? Well, guess what?
It happens.
And they just completely blew their minds that an animal has to die for that. And then, that's where you get your people that run off of that. And I'm not dissing that at all. You believe what you believe. But in the case of what you're talking about, it's the same thing, right? Sometimes things are sacrificed in order for you to have the things you want. In some people's eyes, it's good. Some people's eyes, it's bad.
Mm.
There was plant-eating dinosaurs and there was meat-eating dinosaurs.
That's the thing right there. Let's take a break real fast, and we'll come back with some more stuff that's not awesome.
Yep, that's him.
America's favorite stiff is back.
That's Bernie Lomax. I recognize that smirk anywhere.
But this corpse has a job to do.
I found this in Bernie's wallet. It's a key to a safety deposit box in St. Thomas. That's the $2 million that Lomax stole.
It's noted as a personal entry account.
What does it mean?
The only one who could get in is Bernie Lomax personally, and well, he's kind of dead right now.
We go back to the morgue. We get the body. We go to St. Thomas. We take Bernie to the bank.
So they're packing him up.
I think I'm gonna sit down. Thanks. Get in there.
And heading for the islands.
Whoa, downwind. Whoa, let's go.
But they're about to discover
Raise this man from the dead. He will lead you to where he has hidden the money.
that Bernie Lomax is more popular than ever.
Two guys. They're taking Bernie. Rich. Claire? Get out of the way!
What'd you do with Bernie?
He's in the fridge where we put him.
You are in the power of the movie.
You were supposed to be here guarding Bernie.
Why would I have to guard a dead man stuck in a 2-foot refrigerator?
He's got style.
Where is he now?
You're so cute.
He's got charm.
How did you happen to meet old Burr?
In the conga line.
He's just got no soul.
I just saw a dead man walking on the bottom of the ocean.
But that never stopped Bernie
Bernie? Oh, parasailing?
Who is that?
He's our boss. He's dead. Don't worry about it.
from being the life of the party.
See, Arnold, he's not afraid of you. Let the bravest guy I've ever met.
Weekend at Bernie's, too. No one does dead like Bernie.
All right, we're back. So far to recap, your favorite rock stars dying is not awesome. Dishwashers not starting is not awesome. Finding a cat in your fender is not awesome. There's all kinds.
Stubbing your toe, getting old and having body pains that weren't there before and they don't go away.
Dude, have you seen that meme that's like, hello, I'm the human body. I can create an entire other human, like from the brain all the way down to the skeleton and everything. And like, it only takes me like 9 months to make this entire human. You're like, cool. How long will it take to fix this ankle? And it's like, it'll never be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you mentioned like American Werewolf,
Yeah.
CGI blood,
Yeah.
just doesn't work. They're getting better. Have you watched The Boys?
Yeah.
Like green screen, like Mandalorian and The Boys, like they're getting better.
Yeah.
But they're getting better because I think they're actually adding back enough practical effects to where they can green screen it and CGI it, and like it's always been a conversation with Scott and I is like, if you take a bad transitional scene and then you like Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
Do not remake Clash of the Titans, which they've done like 3 times. It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks so bad.
Yep.
Take the original Clash of the Titans and use all of your technical wizardry
Spiffy it up.
To just go in between the scenes, go in between the frames.
Yep.
And smooth it out to where, but that's another thing that I do kind of have a bit of a problem with in is not awesome is whenever they actually do that, whenever they go through like the special editions of Star Wars, which was 90s CGI.
Exactly.
Where it's like, no.
Right.
I'm sorry, but and like you can like do the entire other series. You can go all the way from the first laser blast to the last laser blast. When 3PO and R2 are on the ground on Tatooine, in the first 5 minutes of Star Wars, A New Hope, that entire desert, them, and everything around them needs to look washed out.
Sure.
Sandblasted.
Yeah.
Tired and creaky and full of sand. It just, you don't take and polish up Goldenrod and then drop him back in the desert. Like, no. Like, there has to be somebody there to say, George.
Yeah.
The story is awesome, but we need to temper this with a little bit of like what.
Yeah.
Like, they just got done talking about how they've been through so many wars. They don't, as robots.
Yeah.
Why would they
look
a time when
clean? Right.
Yeah. So
I've got a big problem, and that kind of what started a lot of that for me too. And I remember when he said that he was going to reissue him. He said, "I'm going to go back and fix a lot of the things that bothered me." And I'm thinking, okay, cool. He's going to fix maybe do a little better job on the stop motion of the Tauntaun running. Smooth that out or something. A little more of the winter beast down there. That kind of stuff. The Wampa. Cool, I got that. Not putting Womp Rats in spots for no reason and trying to fit Jabba over that fat guy that was in the first movie, because you don't need that. You don't need Greedo shooting first. So, and to that case, Spielberg did the exact same thing with E.T., man.
Yeah.
Going back and taking rifles out of people's hands and putting CB radios in their hands. So they're walking around with their arms like this. But they've just got a CB radio in one, they've got nothing in the other one. It's just like, what?
They just did it because they could.
Yeah.
And they got the money. And that's one of those things that's not awesome because why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like, and like that was on my list is like movie reboots.
I've got it right
Okay,
here. Yep.
I don't have a problem at all with rebooting a movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Thing from Outer Space.
Sure.
They rebooted and made The Thing. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
They put it in the hands of the master,
Yeah.
and he did his own thing with it. He casted it perfectly, and he hired a little special effects protege guy who was not even the special effects guy, because I think what's his I
Rob
can't think of his
Bottin.
name. Yeah, he was a Rick Baker or
Yep.
yeah, he was a Rick Baker protege.
Yeah.
So they didn't even hire the A team.
Right.
They hired
Yeah.
his sidekick.
Yeah.
And then this dude just
Yeah. Yeah.
blew it up.
Yeah, man.
So there is a massive respect for making a okay movie into a better movie.
Yeah.
The Fly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Another great example.
When you think about The Fly, you've got other actors, but you've got Goldblum and Gina Davis. Their chemistry is, take the whole second 3/4 out. Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis's chemistry at the beginning is like, forget about the fact that you're in a monster movie. Like, it's hard. You're like, guys, get a room,
right?
Because they're just they're
it's on
saying they're saying lines, but you can just tell they're hot for each other, and they were hot for each other in real life. But still, like, it's real,
yeah,
and it's genuine. And Cronenberg captured that and then turned it horrifying later to where, like, if you didn't have that first part and you just had,
you don't buy into it. Yeah.
You don't have the monster. You have the monster. You have Goldblum kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
And Gina Davis is like, "But I love you." You're like, "How is that even a thing?"
Right.
Like,
Right.
run away. You said it yourself. Be afraid. Like,
right.
Go home. Like,
yeah. And, you know, that goes back to Jaws, right? Same thing with Jaws. I mean, how many times have we been threatened with a remake? How many Jaws ripoffs have we had? None of them capture that lightning in the bottle that is those actors together.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the shark. And I'm the same way. Hey, go back, take the original, do a little tweak here and there with maybe a little CGI that doesn't completely change it, but just adds enough. I don't know. Maybe make Bruce's eyes flip over white once in a while or something. You know.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Not totally make him do flips out of the water and stuff like that. Just just the basic of it is there. Fine tune it a little bit, and we just get too carried away with stuff, and we think just because we say, "Hey, it's the new Ghostbusters movie," it's tricking you to go see something that is just a shadow, not even really a shadow of the original. And we've just kind of gotten to that to where you put the name on it, and you expect people to just go because of that name. And you've got movie remakes, and I've actually got movie prequels. I have a problem with prequels, man.
I'm right there. I'm not a fan of that either.
I can't think of a prequel that I think is better than the movie that they tried to base the prequel off of.
Well, it's like you have to think about in those situations where you have a series of movies, and you mentioned Jaws just now. So like when I was a kid, Jaws 3 was the first one I ever saw.
Yeah.
So according to me, Jaws 2 and Jaws 1 were both prequels of Jaws 3, right? I mean, but that's the way things used to work. Well, it's the way things work now. You make a movie, you make a second one, whatever. But it drives me nuts, and it's where, like, you have a good story.
Yeah.
I don't want to find out. Like, there's certain things I just don't want to know.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Yep.
And then whenever there is things that I want to know, usually it's disappointing.
Exactly. Well, look at exactly. Of course, Danny and I just started doing the Mandalorian series. Look at that right there. Why is that making such an impact? Well, because it's actually doing something right that the prequels kind of screwed up for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The prequels really messed us up because what do you mean Boba Fett's a clone? Where did this crap come from, right? No, he's Mandalorian. That's what we've been told all these years. So, this is trying to right the wrong to some degree, I believe. And if you want to look at it that way, but
I know I agree.
when you when you try to pull the curtain back and show how things really work, and you give too much explanation, it kills the magic of why you loved it in the first place.
Well, and timelines, and we can talk about Star Wars for hours, but to use the same example, was that let's use Wolverine for example, right? Yeah. Wolverine in the comics.
Sure.
Somehow or another, Wolverine made it like 20, 25 years with like 8 different origin stories.
Yeah.
Like this is the definitive Wolverine origin story, and so it's like, okay,
but before he became Wolverine, he was this guy.
as readers of comics, you just accepted that he was mysterious,
right?
And he never because he was always telling his own story, smoking a cigar in a bar somewhere, like,
right.
Oh, you want to hear how I got these claws, whatever.
Right.
It's like it's okay to have a character with a vague backstory without having to be like, okay,
yeah,
at one point sperm and egg met, and we're going to give you every single millisecond sense. Like, that's not how. That does not make a cool character cooler.
Right.
Like, finding out that somebody is flawed for whatever reason, it's just like no. Just
I don't need the childhood story of Leatherface. I mean, it's like I didn't ask for this.
You can gather the childhood story from Leatherface by what's her name standing on the porch and tapping on the bones, the bone wind chimes.
Right.
You can get that whoever lives here, ain't right.
That's right. That's all you need to know. When you start stripping it back and you give more explanation, you destroy what makes this character tick, man. And Angus Scrimm, I saw him do an interview once, and he talked about that because he was talking about the tall man. And the first movie, Phantasm with the tall man in it, he has very few lines, which makes him creepy because you don't know jack crap about him. But as the movies go on, he gets more and more lines, and we take the timelines and start showing, well, he came to Earth back at this time. So it starts killing it. It's interesting, but he's no longer scary.
I watched that movie the other night, actually. The first Phantasm. I've seen 1, 2, and I think 3.
Yeah.
Just kind of like with everything that we talk about. Like, I've seen movies, but I had forgotten how the first one is very much how I like to write stories.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, I have to go back and rewatch it because it's very much like the way the story is told is it's a very straightforward story.
Yep.
There is no. It's like, well, some bad crap happened, and here's a funeral, and here's a kid who's going through crap, and here's the way that everybody's dealing with it. But then you get into that final quarter of the movie, that final act, that third act, where it's like, okay, now none of it makes any sense anymore.
Right.
And like the guy who died is now watching a video about aliens out the back window, and the other guy who has been dead the whole time.
Right.
And you're just like,
yeah,
it's jarring, but it's also.
It's like the X-Files because they'll give
so
you enough.
Much better.
They'll give you a piece of information, and then later on they'll come along and they'll answer that, but it makes you ask 15 more questions.
Yeah,
and that's how that whole thing works. And I mean, whenever you overexpose something, just like Jason, just like Freddy, first couple of movies they're scary as crap. Before it's too long, you're cheering for them. I mean, and it's that thing of too much information, right? It just becomes pop culture.
Dude, you know it's not awesome? It's daylight savings time.
Oh, it sucks.
Which we just got out of Like I'm okay with the time change, like right at the edges of it. But God, dude, like, I know what time it is. Like, I don't need. I'm just it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting there looking at the clock and being like 9:30. Wait, for like 2-3 weeks, you're sitting there being like 9:30. Is it really 9:30? I get these. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that one's wrong then.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it messes everything up. And, you come home and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's already dark. It's like, what is going on here?
I remember being a kid with daylight savings time because I always had this weird sense of justice. Like, why do I have to go to bed? It's because it's dark.
Right.
Then, like, daylight savings time, like, why do I have to go to bed? It's not dark.
It's still daylight outside.
Because it's almost 9. And I remember my dad saying that. I'd be like, 9 o'clock. And so whatever, like, it's anchored in my brain, 9 o'clock. Like, 9. And there's a certain point in the middle of summer where it doesn't get dark until almost 9 o'clock, where you're just like,
Yeah.
damn it. If I let my kids go to bed at dark,
Yeah.
it'd be 9 o'clock.
We get into late December and into January. To me, is the worst because when I wake up in the morning and I drive to work, even when I get to work, it's dark. When I come out of work, it's still dark.
Yep.
I missed all the daylight while I was working.
That was whenever back in the day when I was working at retail. That's the thing when I was working in like driving around doing sales. It was like it's cold, but the guys I would call on, like convenience store owners, they're all from overseas.
Yeah.
They have a different way of being. So if it's hot as hell, it's hotter in their store, and you're like, why don't you turn on the air conditioner? They're like, costs money, don't
Costs
care.
money,
Like
right.
your ice cream's melting. They're like, costs money, don't care. In the wintertime, it's cold, but then they have the heater on. They're like, it's cold. Why do you have the heater on? They're like, it's cold. Like they recognize well,
Wow.
you can regulate things on either side of this thing, but
All right, here's a personal one for me. I don't know if you were affected by this or not, but one thing that is definitely not awesome is the buyout and the relaunch of all the Hostess products. Because, man,
oh no,
they are not what they used to be. The sizes of them are totally different. They're not the same, man. They're not the same.
Mm-mm.
Not the same.
Nothing's the same, dude. So like, I'm not a real big fan of sweets in general. Like
Yeah.
my palate goes to bitter. So I like bitter beer. I like coffee, that sort of stuff. So I'm not usually someone who snacks on treats, but every now and then I'll get like we mentioned on an episode, like a Star Crunch, or I'll get like, this doesn't taste right.
Yeah,
And
man.
like, it's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, everything that I've gotten from Hostess in the past few years, I'm like, come on, guys, this is not up to par. I mean, you're getting gypped on. The sizes are smaller and everything's stale. It's just not as good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, you let me down, Hostess. Whoever owns you now.
The thing is, they don't care because they got contracts with those grocery stores that are just going to pump them out.
Hey, here's another one, man. Do y'all have the Laugh Channel where you're at?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got a problem with the Laugh Channel because all they show basically 2 shows. They show Home Improvement, like 24 hours a day, and they've only got...
Home Improvement sucks.
Well, I mean, it was okay. And, we've got very limited TV here, man. We got like 2 or 3 channels. That's it. We're out in the middle of nowhere. And one of them we can get is the Laugh Channel. And after about 2 or 3 weeks of watching nothing but Home Improvement, hour after hour after hour, you kind of go, okay. But they end up just showing the same ones over and over. I mean, it's not like they've got all of them. They've just got maybe six from this season, 2 from this season, 4 from this season, and that's your rotation. And earlier I walked downstairs and the frickin' Halloween episode was on, which means right after that the Christmas episode's coming on because that's the rotation of it. I even know what's coming up next. It's like, come on, guys, you're called the Laugh Channel. You should have more than one show. Oh, they do. They got the second show, which is Night Court, which comes on weekends. And I'm like, of all the shows that are out there that you could get, man, Three's Company, I mean, just there's a plethora of old comedy shows, and you've basically narrowed it down to 2. Come on, man. Come on, man.
I was never a big Home Improvement fan to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right.
Like, well, it had its moments, but like, it's just.
Yeah, I know.
I always saw Home Improvement as a set for a horror movie, like because it wasn't very well lit. It was kind of dark.
Yeah.
In the lighting.
Yeah. And
the dude, like Tim, was always so goofily like.
Yeah.
But the thing was, he knew he had a hot rod in the garage.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, but he just kind of messed around.
Sure.
And so it's just like, at some point, he's just going to put a knife in everybody and then drive the hot rod off. And they're going to be like, he had a hot rod in the garage. You're like, that guy was not able to build a hot rod. He just like pulled the hot rod out slowly so it didn't like leave any tire marks and like drive off into the woods. It just was humorless to me. I was like,
well, and that's kind of going back to what I'm saying, because you're called the Laugh Channel, and there ain't much laughing going on, right?
Mm-mm.
I mean, they do carry According to Jim, which I do enjoy, and they show that for like 2 episodes, and then it just goes back to Family Improvement or Home Improvement. So
no, normally that would have been like a 10-hour like a marathon, like. Here we are. It's a marathon.
Oh, they do that every once in a while, but it's the same episodes that they showed during the regular season too. So you're just seeing the same episodes again, just closer together.
Do you ever have that weird thing? It's like with old stuff that you used to watch, like I don't know, Scooby Doo or Night Court, or like a show that you really loved, like Knight Rider or something.
Yeah.
And you remember them advertising the episode that you never saw?
Yeah.
It's like, in this episode, and you see Knight Rider like going off the end of a dock. And you're like, I've never seen an episode where he goes off the end of the dock, but they show it in the commercial all the time. I've never seen that episode.
Right.
Like, and then you find out later it's like, it was shot for the pilot, but never aired. And you're like, oh!
There you go.
Oh!
Yeah.
Like, I always just thought I missed one.
Well, remember when they'd make trailers and they would have scenes in the trailers that weren't in the movie, and you go through the whole movie waiting for it, or then you get to the later version of it to where they show you everything that's in the movie, and you're like, I could have just watched the trailer and I got the same thing out of it.
Have you ever heard or seen on YouTube the Harrison Ford narration of the Empire Strikes Back commercial?
I guess I have. I've checked that out.
Well, I'm going to put it in this episode because it's like at least a little part of it, because it's very much, it's Harrison Ford, Empire Strikes Back. We all know that Harrison Ford was not a fan of being in Star Wars, even though it made him billions of dollars.
Yeah.
But it was that whatever that deep voice guy. I know his name too, but the guy who used to do all the trailers, where it's like long time ago, galaxy far. It's Harrison Ford, and I'm reading lines off a teleprompter. He's like, we have stormtroopers and we have evil Dark Knights, and it's just like, and it was a cut of a commercial, and it's on YouTube, but it's the weirdest thing because like it's Han Solo narrating the commercial. Like, they were just completely.
It can't be any weirder than that holiday special though, man.
30 minutes of Chewbacca's family talking in Chewbacca.
Not to mention his grandfather Lumpy or whatever his name was gets in that sex booth thing where he has like virtual sex with like Lena Horne or somebody. It's just like, what is going on with this thing, man?
That is not awesome. We're at an hour. Let's you want to leave the not awesome behind for a while and talk about something awesome?
Sure.
Do you have more on your checklist?
Well, to go along with your movie remakes, I'm tired of the remakes of TV shows that are like, I don't need another Hawaii Five-0. I don't need another MacGyver. Make up your own show. You know?
Well, the funny thing about that is, like, the guys, the people on Hawaii Five-0 were in Hawaii because that's where they were filming Lost. And they're like, do you want to go home? Because we don't want to pay to move you home. Or we can just reboot Hawaii Five-0 because there's nothing interesting here going on. We can just...
I mean...
And they're like, sure, I'll sign up for that.
Why do you remake Magnum P.I.? Why don't you just make another TV show and just, instead of it trying to be this... And again, it's that thing of name association, right? Oh, because we call it Magnum P.I., then all these old people will watch it too. Well, no, not really, because it's not Tom Selleck.
Yep.
People are watching the cop show that Tom Selleck's on because Tom Selleck's on that show.
Dude, you know, I just had this flash. You're in a cover band.
Yeah.
This is why. That's because you're like, I'm trying to work on some new material. And they're like, you ought to play. I don't know, what's that song you've heard forever and 1,000? I'm like, you ought to play Brown Eyed Girl. That's a song that'll get some girls dancing.
Yeah.
And you're like, I learned how to play guitar for this.
Yeah. I want to play. I mean, there has to be a happy medium there, man, right? You know, and that's kind of what I like about what we're doing. And I know Angie Young, she's probably listening to the show, but, you know, the stuff that we play, we try to keep it to where it's not the typical songs everybody else plays, but it's still stuff that everybody knows, right?
Right.
And that's the trick, because who doesn't play Cocaine, right? So we try not to do that one, but try to do something that it's kind of like
Mustang.
It's like a Netflix. You know, hey, if you like this show, check out this show.
Exactly.
Hey, if you like cocaine, check out, you know, this other song we do instead.
Go in the bathroom with that chick. We're playing songs over here. All right, man. Let's call it a day on the Not Awesome.